Hi there, my name is Matt Hanlon. I'm a longtime software developer who's worked on a number of different platforms in a variety of environments. I talked in the first video about making our lives as simple as possible on the Mac. And there are a few types of shortcuts we will find ourselves using a lot. There are keyboard shortcuts, system-wide and app-specific ones. There are handy ways to get things done quickly with as little effort as possible. And there are ways of organizing access for ourselves that will act as shortcuts in our everyday actions. First up, let's talk about the keyboard shortcuts, and probably the number one I use all the time is Command Space. We'll bring up Spotlight. By default, it will show me nothing. I could start typing in here, for example, if I want to open up QuickTime Player, or if I want to start development on a new website, I can open up Espresso. So I can use this as a really handy app launcher. But I can also use it to search for files as well. We had the Heart of Darkness file in one of our earlier videos. That will bring up my text edit as well as this Heart of Darkness file. It's a really handy way to get around the system quick. There's loads of more power inside Spotlight, but that's what I use it for all the time. It's just for navigating around the file system and for opening apps more often than not. Now, imagine I'm working in an app and maybe it hangs. If I'm doing a lot of development, I may hang the machine. If I hit Command Option Escape, that'll bring up this Force Quit pane. And it'll give me a choice of all the running apps. I can kind of go in here and say, actually, Espresso's hung. It's not. But if it had, I could force quit it. As it tells me, I'll lose any changes. But that is a way to get rid of an app that's misbehaving. So that's one way. The other way to kill an application, if, say, I wanted to get rid of Visual Studio Code without navigating to it, I can use the app switcher and Command Tab. And when I'm on a particular app, like VS Code, I can hit Q, and that will quit the application. So now it no longer shows up in my list of running apps in the app switcher. So a quick detour from the shortcuts. If we are concerned about the state of the apps running on our machine, we can always do Command Space to open up the Spotlight. I'm going to type in Activity Monitor. This is a way to get an overview of all the processes running on the machine and how much CPU they're using, how much memory, how much energy they're taking up, especially on my laptop. Oh, that's something I want to mind. We can take a look at writes to disk and reads from disk, as well as network activity. Just like we saw the other day in the Finder video, we can also go and change the columns that we have in our activity monitor. So this is a good place to go and check out what's going on with our processes. So if I look at CPU and I have a look at activity monitors, actually using a lot of CPU right now, I can quit the app. I can force quit it, effectively kill it in Unix terms. And I can also get information about the running process. So this is a handy place to go have a look if you're inspecting the processes on the machine. There are a few common shortcuts that we use almost everywhere on the Mac. Command N, you would have seen lots of places. That usually creates a new window in a particular app. So I have the Finder foremost. If I switch to text edit and I hit Command N, it'll create a new text edit document. As I mentioned in prior videos, if you hit Command comma, we'll get the preferences for nearly every app. You can see there's the shortcut there. Command X, we'll have a look at this. So if I pull up my Quick Brown Fox text, Command X will cut the text, and then I can always paste it down below with Command V. If I want to not do what I just did, I can hit Command Z to undo, or Command Z if you like. And if I want to just copy the text and not cut it from where it was, I do Command C. A lot of these should feel pretty familiar from other platforms. We can also do Command A to select all, and then Command W for closing windows. And if we want to stop working with text edit, in this case, we can hit Command Q to quit. If you're doing a bit of development and you're trying to show some things off to other folks, There are a few choices here for taking screenshots. You can take a whole screenshot by hitting Command-Shift-3. You'll hear that click. And if I go look down here, I can see in the lower right-hand corner, I've got a thumbnail of my screenshot. If I tap on it, it'll open it up for me. And I can copy it, I can share it from here. When I say that I'm done, you can see that it actually saved it on the desktop as well. If I want to just take a screenshot of a portion of the screen, I would do Command-Shift-4. And then my cursor turns into, or my mouse turns into a crosshairs, and I can just select a certain area of the screen. And now the Command-Shift-4 has an interesting behavior. If I hit Command-Shift-4 again and I get the crosshairs, as I mouse over Windows and I hit the space bar, you can see that it's highlighting different parts. So I can actually just take a screenshot of a window if I don't want to take a screenshot of the entire, or try to select it with the crosshairs. Now, another thing you can do, and we're starting to get a little Emacs territory here, is we can add a control key to those combos. So if I do Command-Control-Shift-4, and I take that screenshot, now it's not adding it to the desktop, it's actually just taking the screenshot and put it into my pasteboard. So if I go to an app like, for example, Preview, I can do File, New from Clipboard. That's the default. So if I hit Command-N, it'll create a new file, maybe that I can mark up and work with a little bit. The last screenshot shortcut that I have for you is Command-Shift-5 will actually bring up the recording. So I can choose to capture a certain part of the screen, certain windows, or the entire thing. And I have a few different options as well. I can choose to have the sound, I can have a delay. Okay, so that's a quick look at shortcuts in terms of the keys that we use all the time. If you're inspecting an application, you'll often see the shortcuts over here to the right of the menu item. So this shows me the shortcuts that I would use to display the different views in Finder that we talked about in the Getting Around Your File System video. But another shortcut we have is this thing called the Control Center. Now, if you have an iPhone, you might be familiar with it. It's up here in the menu bar. This offers us a really quick way to get to a few different key features of macOS. My personal favorite is this focus mode. I can turn this on and make sure that I don't get any notifications, especially while I'm recording a video or teaching a class, or if I'm just working with my head down. Focus mode is kind of good for turning off all those notifications on my Mac. I can configure my Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. I can change things about the display, turn it to dark mode or night shift on or off. I can enable the Stage Manager that we talked about in Getting Around the File System. I can turn on screen mirroring so I can share my screen to an Apple TV nearby. And I also can add additional things to the Control Center. So if I jump to the system preference for that, so I'm actually just going to type in Control Center. That's going to open up system preferences in the Control Center setting. There are a few things I can change in here. I'm going to add battery to Control Center. I'm going to add music recognition so I can use Shazam to detect music that I'm hearing. Hearing, I'm going to add fast user switching, brightness, and that is it. So now if I have a look and I tap the Control Center, I've got a few more things here where I can inspect how my battery's doing, what's taking the most energy. With hearing, I can turn on background sounds. Just as a way to maybe focus a bit more. So there's loads of things we can do from the Control Center. Now, we talked the other day in the Getting Around the File System chapter about not writing over files and everything like that. Sometimes we want to use that same file in multiple places, but not create an infinite number of copies. So imagine I'm building a new project and it centers around Heart of Darkness and some code. So if I create a folder, we're going to call this one My New Project. This is going to take resources from all around my Mac. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that up. And what I can do is create these things called aliases on the Mac. So here I'm going to go to Heart of Darkness. This I want to create an alias. So I'm going to right click on it and choose Make Alias. And I'm going to drag this one over to my new project. Now, we'll see if I change to icon view, it's a little bit more apparent. We can see that there's a little arrow on the bottom of the icon. This just tells me that this is actually pointing at another file altogether. I can rename this and it won't rename the original. But this is handy because any changes I make to this file here will be reflected in the original file. As I mentioned, if I were working on a project where I pulled together a lot of different resources from around my Mac, this might be a good option for me. If I'm trying to show off a certain number of apps that work really well, I might go to the applications and say, do you know what? Actually, I'm going to be using Espresso for this. Maybe it's a web-based project. So we'll go and create an alias. So it's another really handy way to get around the file system quick. If you're familiar with links on Unix, it's a little bit similar, but there's a bit more info. If we go to Get Info with Command I, we can learn a little bit more about where the original is. We can select a new original if we want to change where the alias points to. But there's a bit of extra information that is carried along with the alias on the Mac. So that's yet another shortcut you can take advantage of. Now we also have the app called Shortcuts. This is a handy, relatively new tool that sort of replaces loads of different tools from the past called Automator and AppleScript and you name it. But we can launch that by just typing shortcuts. This app will give us things like shortcuts to start a timer, find out the nearest train, do things like turn text to speech and speech to text, start a Pomodoro timer if that's how you work. Loads of things we can do, and we can create our own. So if you are interested in playing around with cobbling together a series of actions that you would do over and over again, for some reason you don't want to do it in terminal with a Unix script, or you can't, there are some more high-level actions that you can take using apps on your system to either quit them at a certain time or run a timer, shut down the network, things like that, just to maybe allow you to focus. So this is another potential option that you have available to yourself, that you can create your own and you can share them. Some of them will run as well on an iPhone or an iPad. There's lots of different things you can do with shortcuts. So that's another thing worth checking out. So that's all we have for today. In the next topics, of course, we're going to cover some of the ways you can make the Mac feel more like home. Dive into the command line, and we're going to go over some of the safety and security measures that the Mac has that you're going to want to learn how to work with to take full advantage of your Mac. We'll see you in the next video.